The crystalline vessel of Zarek cut through Earth's atmosphere like a razor of liquid starlight, its quantum-adaptive hull shimmering with technologies so advanced they would appear magical to most human observers. Inside the ship's neural interface chamber, Zarek's multi-sensory organs pulsed with a mixture of bureaucratic certainty and barely concealed disdain. Another routine assessment. Another primitive species to categorize. Jake Richardson knew something was different the moment the anomalous reading appeared on his quantum detection array. As lead scientist at the Integrated Global Observation Center, he had spent years tracking potential extraterrestrial signals, but this was unlike anything in humanity's extensive catalogs. The signal didn't just break patterns, it rewrote them entirely. "Director," he called out to Miranda Wells, his immediate superior, "we've got something extraordinary." Miranda approached the holographic display, her cybernetic eye, a testament to humanity's own technological advancement, scanning the incoming data streams. Where most would see chaos, she saw potential. Her prosthetic implant flickered with a cascade of computational analysis, cross-referencing the alien signatures against every known database. "Alien vessel," she muttered, "but not like anything we've recorded before." Zarek's mission briefing was a masterpiece of bureaucratic condescension. The Galactic Concordance had compiled extensive files on humanity, a species categorized as potentially dangerous, technologically infantile, and socially unstable. Centuries of intercepted transmissions, satellite observations, and deep space monitoring had painted a picture of a species perpetually on the brink of self-destruction. Wars, environmental challenges, social conflicts. Humans seemed to lurch from one crisis to another with a chaos that defied rational understanding. The Concordance's preliminary reports suggested quarantine or controlled observation, certainly not first contact. But something was different this time. As the ship descended, Jake's team began a multi-layered analysis that would have been impossible just decades earlier. Quantum computers interfaced with advanced machine learning algorithms, creating a real-time map of the alien vessel's technological signatures. Each scan revealed layers of complexity that challenged existing understanding. Miranda watched as Jake's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, pulling apart the alien technology with a scientific curiosity that bordered on artistic deconstruction. "Talk to me, Richardson," she demanded. "The ship's quantum signature suggests technologies that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of physics," Jake reported, his voice a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. "It's not just advanced. It's fundamentally different." Zarek, meanwhile, conducted his own observations. The Concordance's files had prepared him for a planet of conflict, and he found that expectation partially confirmed. Satellite feeds showed ongoing territorial disputes, environmental challenges, economic inequalities, but something else caught his attention. In the same moment he observed a military confrontation in one region, he watched a collaborative medical research team in another continent develop a breakthrough treatment for a rare genetic disorder. When economic reports showed market volatility in one sector, simultaneous feeds demonstrated unprecedented global cooperation in addressing climate change. Humans were a species of impossible contradictions. The ship's advanced sensory systems began probing deeper. Communications networks revealed a planet constantly in motion, information flowing at speeds and complexities that suggested an organic, adaptive intelligence far beyond simple technological progression. Social media platforms, scientific research repositories, educational networks, each represented a neural pathway in a planetary brain that never stopped thinking, never stopped changing. Jake's quantum detection array suddenly spiked. "Miranda," he said, his voice sharp with anticipation, "the vessel isn't just observing. It's analyzing us. And I don't think it understands what it's seeing." Indeed, Zarek found himself in uncharted territory. The Galactic Concordance's comprehensive files suddenly felt woefully inadequate. Humans were not just another species to be categorized and filed. They were something else entirely, a dynamic, unpredictable force of potential that defied traditional xenological classification. As the crystalline ship completed its atmospheric entry, Jake Richardson and Miranda Wells watched with a mixture of scientific curiosity and something deeper, a sense that this moment would change everything. The first true encounter was about to begin. The first true interaction erupted like a supernova of unexpected complexity. Zarek's ship had barely completed its atmospheric stabilization when a cascade of human communications began to overwhelm his carefully constructed data filters. Emma Winters stood in her quantum research laboratory at the Stanford Advanced Research Center, surrounded by a constellation of holographic displays and experimental quantum entanglement modules. Her team had been working on a breakthrough that conventional scientific wisdom declared impossible, a quantum communication network that could transmit information instantaneously across seemingly insurmountable distances. Most scientists would have been daunted by the challenge. Emma saw it as a puzzle waiting to be solved. Her wild auburn hair was pulled back in a messy bun, quantum-encrypted data streams dancing across her augmented reality glasses. The laboratory hummed with a unique energy, part scientific precision, part creative chaos. Colleagues moved around her like electrons in a complex atomic dance, each bringing their unique perspective to the most challenging computational problem of the decade. Zarek's ship's communication systems began to intercept and analyze these transmissions. What should have been a simple data collection became something far more intricate. Human communication wasn't just a transfer of information. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of ideas. "I've got something," Emma muttered, her fingers moving with impossible speed across quantum interface modules. The problem before her was a computational nightmare, a complex algorithmic challenge that had stumped supercomputers and research teams across multiple continents. The challenge involved creating a communication network that could maintain coherence across quantum states while adapting to unprecedented levels of informational complexity. Traditional approaches had failed spectacularly, but Emma Winters wasn't interested in traditional approaches. In less than 17 minutes, she rewrote the entire computational framework. Zarek's ship registered the breakthrough with a series of quantum resonance pulses that translated roughly to absolute confusion. The speed, the creativity, the sheer audacity of the solution defied every xenological database in the Galactic Concordance's extensive archives. Simultaneously, on the other side of the Global Observation Center, Jake Richardson was tracking the alien vessel's interactions. His team had developed a multi-layered observation protocol that combined satellite tracking, quantum detection, and advanced machine learning algorithms. Where most would see an impenetrable technological barrier, Jake saw an opportunity for understanding. "Miranda," he called out to his director, "the alien ship is doing something strange with our communication networks." Miranda Wells approached, her cybernetic eye scanning multiple data streams simultaneously. "Strange how?" "It's not just collecting data," Jake explained, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "It's trying to understand our communication patterns, but our systems are changing faster than it can analyze." The truth was both simple and profound. Human communication wasn't a static system. It was a living, breathing entity that evolved in real time. Social media platforms, scientific research repositories, educational networks, each represented a neural pathway in a planetary brain that never stopped thinking, never stopped changing. Emma's quantum communication breakthrough was just one example. Across the planet, humans were solving problems that defied traditional understanding. A marine biologist in Indonesia was developing coral restoration techniques that combined genetic engineering with advanced ecological modeling. An urban planner in Brazil was redesigning entire city infrastructures to create self-sustaining ecological communities. Zarek's ship continued its analysis, its advanced sensors becoming increasingly perplexed. The data streams didn't just contain information, they contained potential. Each communication channel suggested layers of complexity that suggested something far beyond a simple technological species. In the observation center, Jake and Miranda watched the alien vessel's increasingly erratic quantum signatures. "It's confused," Jake said with a hint of amusement. "Our systems are changing faster than it can understand." Miranda's cybernetic eye flickered. "That's humanity for you. We don't just adapt. We transform." Emma Winters, still surrounded by her quantum interfaces, suddenly laughed. A breakthrough was more than a scientific achievement. It was a statement of human potential, a declaration that no challenge was truly impossible. As the alien ship continued its observation, humanity continued to do what it did best. It evolved. It imagined. It transformed the very nature of possibility. The first true encounter was becoming something neither species had anticipated. The solar event arrived with zero warning. A massive coronal discharge erupted from the sun's surface, a wave of electromagnetic chaos that would have decimated most technological civilizations. Satellite networks flickered. Communication grids trembled. Power infrastructures across multiple continents teetered on the brink of total collapse. In the first moments, most species would have fractured. Humans did something else entirely. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, head of the Global Emergency Response Network, was already in motion before the first alarm sounded. Her command center in Buenos Aires became the nerve center of a planetary defense, unlike anything in recorded history. Quantum communication networks, emergency protocols, and adaptive response systems began to activate with a speed that defied traditional emergency management. "We're losing satellite coverage in the Pacific Rim," announced Marcus Chen, his fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "Backup systems are initiating, but we're looking at potential communication blackouts in multiple regions." Elena's response was immediate. "Activate the distributed network protocol. We're not losing anyone." Across the planet, something extraordinary began to happen. Research teams from competing nations, rival corporations, and seemingly incompatible scientific disciplines formed a global response network in real time. It wasn't just cooperation. It was a planetary immune system responding to a critical threat. In orbit, Zarek's ship watched in absolute bewilderment. The Galactic Concordance's databases had predicted total system failure. Humanity should have been paralyzed. Instead, they were transforming the very nature of the crisis. Jake Richardson's aerospace engineering team at the Global Observation Center began deploying emergency communication relays designed to withstand extreme solar radiation. These weren't just backup systems. They were adaptive networks that could reconfigure themselves faster than the solar event could damage them. Emma Winters' quantum communication research suddenly became humanity's lifeline. The breakthrough she had achieved weeks earlier now served as the foundation for a global communication mesh that could maintain coherence even as traditional networks collapsed. "We're routing communication through quantum entanglement channels," Emma reported, her voice calm despite the global emergency. "Traditional infrastructure is secondary now. We're creating a living, adaptive network." In Tokyo, a team of engineers used advanced machine learning algorithms to predict and mitigate power grid failures. In Nairobi, climate scientists quickly adapted their environmental monitoring systems to track the solar event's potential long-term impacts. A research station in Antarctica became a critical hub for global data collection and analysis. Zarek's ship continued its observation, its advanced sensors struggling to process what was happening. This wasn't just a response to a crisis. It was a planetary-scale act of collective intelligence. Miranda Wells watched the global response with a mixture of professional assessment and profound pride. Her cybernetic eye tracked multiple data streams, analyzing the intricate dance of human collaboration. "They're not just surviving," she muttered to Jake. "They're evolving in real time." The solar event continued its destructive path. Conventional wisdom suggested total communication breakdown. Instead, humanity was creating something new, a communication network so adaptive, so resilient, that the very concept of infrastructure was being reimagined. Emergency response teams in different continents began sharing real-time data through quantum channels, A power grid failure in South America was compensated by rapid energy redistribution from European and Asian networks. Communication satellites destroyed by solar radiation were instantly replaced by a mesh of ground-based and orbital backup systems. It wasn't just technological resilience, it was a fundamental reimagining of planetary defense. Zarik's ship recorded data that would completely upend the Galactic Concordance's understanding of technological development. Humans weren't just surviving the solar event. They were using the crisis as an opportunity to develop more advanced communication and energy distribution systems. "We're losing 40% of primary satellite infrastructure," Marcus Chen reported. Elena Rodriguez's response was immediate. "We'll replace 100% within 48 hours. And remarkably, they did. As the solar event began to subside, humanity had not just survived. They had transformed a potential catastrophe into a planetary upgrade. Communication networks were more robust. Energy distribution systems were more adaptive. The very infrastructure of human civilization had evolved. Zarik's ship continued its observation, its advanced sensors struggling to process a simple, profound truth. Humans didn't just respond to challenges, they weaponized them. The first true test had arrived. Humanity had passed with impossible, breathtaking style. The quantum databanks of Zarik's ship were breaking down. What had begun as a routine observational mission had transformed into something far more complex. The solar event had shattered every preconception the Galactic Concordance had carefully constructed about human potential. Each analysis only deepened the mystery. Humans were not a species. They were a living, breathing quantum algorithm of possibility. In the depths of the alien vessel's neural interface chamber, Zarik's multi-sensory organs pulsed with a mixture of confusion and emerging respect. The Concordance's files, meticulously compiled over centuries of observation, now felt like childish scribblings compared to the reality unfolding before him. Dr. Elena Rodriguez emerged as a focal point of Zarik's intense study. Her leadership during the solar crisis was not just about technical coordination. It was a masterclass in adaptive intelligence that defied conventional understanding of organizational management. During a seemingly routine strategy meeting, Elena navigated complex interpersonal dynamics with a skill that was part diplomatic negotiation, part quantum computation. A potential conflict between research teams from China and the United States, teams with historically competitive relationships, was transformed into a collaborative breakthrough in solar radiation mitigation. "Our differences are our strength," she said, her voice calm and precise. "Each perspective is a piece of a larger solution." Zarik's ship recorded the interaction, his computational matrices struggling to process the nuance. This was not simple communication. This was a form of social problem-solving that existed in a realm between cooperation and creativity. Emma Winters continued to be a particular point of fascination. Her quantum research team operated with a methodology that seemed to defy traditional scientific approaches. Where most research teams followed linear progression, Emma's team moved more like a living organism, adapting, shifting, reimagining their approach in real time. During a critical research session, Emma encountered a computational dead end that would have stopped most scientific teams. Instead of frustration, she saw an opportunity. Within hours, her team had not just solved the initial problem but developed an entirely new approach to quantum communication that rendered their previous methodologies obsolete. "Science is not about being right," Emma told her team. "It's about being curious." Miranda Wells watched these interactions with a unique perspective. Her cybernetic augmentations allowed her to process human interactions with a level of depth that traditional observation could not achieve. She understood something profound about human potential that most humans themselves did not recognize. Humanity's true strength was not in their technology. It was in their capacity for continuous reimagination. Jake Richardson's work at the Global Observation Center became another focal point of Zarik's analysis. Traditional alien observation protocols suggested maintaining strict emotional and intellectual distance. Jake approached scientific observation as an act of creative exploration. When tracking the alien vessel's quantum signatures, Jake didn't just collect data. He imagined possibilities. Each anomalous reading was an invitation to understand, to explore, to push beyond existing knowledge. "We're not just observing," Jake often told his team. "We're in a conversation with the unknown." Zarek's ship began to recognize something terrifying and beautiful. Human intelligence was not a fixed state. It was a dynamic, fluid system of continuous adaptation. Their emotional volatility, what the Concordance had previously labeled as a weakness, was actually a sophisticated form of cognitive flexibility. A research team in Kenya developed a breakthrough in agricultural technology that could transform desert environments. A group of high school students in Mexico created an innovative approach to recycling that challenged existing environmental management strategies. A collective of artists and engineers in Brazil developed a new form of sustainable architecture that merged aesthetic beauty with ecological functionality. These were not isolated incidents. They were expressions of a planetary intelligence that refused to be categorized or confined. The Galactic Concordance's files became increasingly irrelevant. Humans were not just another species to be cataloged and understood. They were a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could be. Zarek's psychological transformation was complete. Humanity was not a problem to be solved or a civilization to be assessed. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, brilliant, and fundamentally transformative. The universe, Zarek realized, would never be the same. The quantum disruption wave first appeared as a whisper at the edge of known space. Astronomical monitoring stations across Earth detected an anomaly that defied conventional understanding. A cascading wave of destructive energy that had already consumed 3 advanced civilizations was moving with calculated precision through the galactic cluster. The Galactic Concordance's response was predictably bureaucratic. Endless committees convened. Mathematical models were generated. Probability simulations ran in exponential cycles that ultimately concluded one thing: total destruction was inevitable. Jake Richardson received the first comprehensive data package at 3:17 Greenwich Mean Time. Most would have been overwhelmed. He saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. Within hours, he had assembled a team that bordered on the impossible. Climate scientists worked alongside quantum physicists. Speculative fiction writers collaborated with military strategists. Artificial intelligence experts shared data with indigenous knowledge keepers from various global cultures. The threat was unlike anything humanity had encountered. The quantum disruption wave didn't just destroy civilizations. It unraveled the fundamental quantum fabric of existence. It consumed technological infrastructures, biological systems, and even the basic quantum information that maintained molecular structures. 3 advanced civilizations had already fallen. The Concordance's records were clinical, detached, a series of mathematical notations that reduced entire species to statistical probabilities. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood something deeper. Each civilization represented more than data points. They were stories, potential, entire universes of experience that had been abruptly terminated. "We're not going to be another statistic," she told the assembled team. The Global Threat Response Center became a nexus of human potential. Traditional boundaries dissolved. Military classification protocols were suspended. Open-source research platforms became the primary information exchange mechanism. A research team in Mumbai discovered unusual quantum resonance patterns in the disruption wave's leading edge. Simultaneously, a group of theoretical physicists in Sao Paulo began developing predictive models that suggested the wave wasn't just a destructive force. It was a complex information system with its own internal logic. Emma Winters saw something others missed. "It's not random," she explained during a global conference call that simultaneously translated into 47 languages. The quantum disruption wave follows a pattern. It's adaptive, but that means it can be predicted. And if it can be predicted, it can be understood. Zarek's ship recorded the human response with increasing astonishment, where the Galactic Concordance prepared for retreat and preservation of minimal information stores. Humans were doing something entirely different. They were preparing to fight. Not with conventional weapons, not with traditional defensive strategies, but with something far more complex, a multi-layered approach that combined scientific innovation, collective intelligence, and a fundamental refusal to accept inevitable destruction. Miranda Wells' cybernetic systems began to integrate data from multiple global research platforms. Machine learning algorithms developed in universities across 6 continents began to create predictive models that suggested impossible solutions. "We're not looking to survive," Miranda told Jake Richardson. "We're looking to transform the very nature of the threat." The quantum disruption wave moved with mechanical precision. It had consumed civilizations that were technologically centuries ahead of humanity. Its approach was mathematical, calculating, seemingly unstoppable. But humanity was anything but predictable. Research teams began developing technologies that didn't just defend against the wave. They sought to understand its fundamental nature. Quantum communication networks were repurposed into massive distributed computing systems. Satellite networks became adaptive sensing platforms. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A team of indigenous astronomers from New Zealand, using mathematical models derived from traditional navigation techniques, identified subtle quantum resonance patterns that modern computational approaches had missed. Their insights were immediately integrated into global research platforms. The Galactic Concordance's communication channels were filled with mathematical projections of total destruction. Humanity's channels were filled with something else entirely: collaborative potential, innovative thinking, and a fundamental belief that no threat was truly insurmountable. Zarek's ship continued its observation. The quantum disruption wave was approaching. Humanity's response defied every predictive model in the Galactic Concordance's extensive databases. They weren't preparing to die. They were preparing to transform. The solution emerged not from a laboratory, not from a military command center, but from the most unexpected confluence of human creativity imaginable. Emma Winters stood at the center of a global collaborative network that defied every conventional understanding of scientific research. Her team had grown beyond traditional academic boundaries. A living, breathing neural network of human intelligence that spanned continents, disciplines, and seemingly incompatible perspectives. The breakthrough came during a marathon 72-hour global thinking session. Participants included quantum physicists, indigenous knowledge keepers, speculative fiction writers, climate scientists, and artificial intelligence experts. They weren't just analyzing the quantum disruption wave. They were reimagining the fundamental nature of existence. "We're not trying to stop the wave," Emma explained, her wild auburn hair pulled back, holographic data streams dancing around her. "We're trying to communicate with it." Zarek's ship recorded the conversation, its advanced translation matrices struggling to comprehend the radical approach. The Galactic Concordance's standard response to existential threats was always the same: defense, retreat, preservation of minimal information. Humans were proposing something entirely different. Jake Richardson had become the crucial bridge between scientific disciplines. His ability to translate complex theoretical concepts across different fields of expertise made him a critical component of the global response team. "The wave isn't just a destructive force," he articulated during a global conference that simultaneously translated into 53 languages. "It's an information system, and every information system can be understood, can be communicated with." The proposed solution was so radical, so completely outside established scientific understanding, that it initially seemed like madness. They would transform the quantum disruption wave. Not destroy it, not defend against it. Transform it. A team in Bangalore discovered unusual quantum resonance patterns that suggested the wave wasn't a purely destructive phenomenon, but a complex adaptive system seeking information. Indigenous astronomers from Australia brought traditional knowledge that reframed the entire approach to understanding cosmic phenomena. Miranda Wells' cybernetic systems began to integrate data from multiple global research platforms. Machine learning algorithms developed in universities across 6 continents created predictive models that suggested impossible solutions. The approach combined technologies that should have been incompatible: quantum communication networks, biological adaptive systems, artificial intelligence pattern recognition, indigenous knowledge systems, theoretical physics, speculative design methodologies. Each approach was a piece of a complex puzzle. Together, they began to form something entirely new. Elena Rodriguez coordinated the global effort with a skill that was part diplomatic negotiation, part quantum computation. Research teams that would traditionally compete now worked with a level of collaboration that defied traditional scientific methodologies. "Our differences are our greatest strength," she repeatedly emphasized. "Each perspective is a critical piece of understanding." The quantum disruption wave was approaching with mechanical precision. It had consumed civilizations centuries more advanced than humanity. Its approach was mathematical, calculating, seemingly unstoppable. But humanity was anything but predictable. The solution they developed wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a defense system. It was a communication protocol, a way of transforming the fundamental information structure of the approaching threat. Zarek's ship continued its observation, its advanced sensors struggling to process what was happening. This wasn't just a scientific approach. This was a planetary-scale act of collective imagination. Emma Winter's team had discovered something profound. The quantum disruption wave wasn't just destroying civilizations. It was seeking something: information, understanding, connection. "We're not going to fight," Emma told the global team. "We're going to have a conversation." The Galactic Concordance's communication channels were filled with mathematical projections of total destruction. Humanity's channels were filled with something else entirely: collaborative potential, innovative thinking, and a fundamental belief that no threat was truly insurmountable. As the wave approached, humanity prepared not for war, but for the most complex communication attempt in galactic history. They were going to turn a wave of destruction into an opportunity for understanding. The moment of implementation arrived with a silence that was more profound than any sound. Global communication networks, satellite arrays, and quantum entanglement platforms aligned in a configuration that defied every known principle of technological interaction. What appeared to be a potentially suicidal mission became a masterclass of strategic imagination that would reshape understanding of intelligent life. Jake Richardson stood at the Global Coordination Center, his hands hovering over interfaces that looked more like living artworks than traditional technology. Each movement sent cascading waves of quantum information across platforms that seemed to breathe with collective intelligence. "Initiating primary communication protocol," he announced. The words seemed inadequate for the magnitude of what was happening. Emma Winter's quantum communication team had developed an approach that was part scientific innovation, part collective consciousness. They weren't just sending a message. They were creating a living, adaptive communication system that could interface with the quantum disruption wave's fundamental information structure. Zarek's ship recorded every microsecond with increasing disbelief. The implementation began with a series of quantum frequency modulations that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Satellite networks across 6 continents synchronized with a precision that suggested they were living organisms rather than mechanical systems. Quantum entanglement platforms created communication channels that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional states. Elena Rodriguez oversaw the global coordination with a calm that belied the unprecedented nature of the mission. Her leadership was a delicate balance of strategic management and intuitive understanding. Every research team, every technological platform, every human contribution was a critical component of a planetary-scale communication attempt. "We're not just defending," she had told the global team repeatedly. "We're engaging in the most complex conversation in human history." The quantum disruption wave approached with its mechanical precision. Centuries of galactic records suggested total destruction was inevitable. Humanity proposed something else entirely: communication. Miranda Wells' cybernetic systems processed the incoming and outgoing data streams. What looked like chaos to traditional observation was actually a carefully orchestrated symphony of human potential. Machine learning algorithms developed in universities across the globe created adaptive response patterns that shifted in real time. Indigenous knowledge keepers from New Zealand contributed mathematical models derived from traditional navigation techniques. Theoretical physicists in Sao Paulo developed predictive algorithms that suggested the wave was more than a destructive force. It was an information-seeking system. Jake watched as the communication protocols began to interface with the approaching wave. The initial contact was unlike anything in recorded scientific history. It wasn't a collision. It was a conversation. Quantum frequencies began to shift. Information patterns that had been destructive started to transform. The wave didn't just slow. It began to change its fundamental structure. "We're making contact," Emma whispered, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and pure wonder. Zarek's ship recorded every microsecond. The Galactic Concordance's databases became increasingly irrelevant. Humanity was doing something that defied every established protocol of cosmic interaction. The quantum disruption wave encountered humanity's communication network, and everything changed. Information began to flow in ways that challenged fundamental understanding of communication. It wasn't just data transmission. It was a complex dance of understanding, of shared consciousness, of fundamental reimagining. Research platforms across the globe lit up with unprecedented readings. The wave wasn't being stopped. It was being transformed. Elena Rodriguez watched the global platforms with a sense of profound understanding. This was more than a technological achievement. This was a planetary act of collective imagination. "We're changing the conversation," she said softly. The implementation continued. Quantum communication networks adapted in real time. Artificial intelligence systems developed response patterns that suggested a level of intelligence that was neither human nor machine, but something entirely new. Indigenous knowledge systems provided critical insights into pattern recognition. Speculative fiction writers contributed conceptual frameworks that challenged traditional scientific thinking. Each perspective was a critical piece of a complex, living solution. As the wave continued its approach, something extraordinary happened. It wasn't just slowing. It wasn't just changing. It was beginning to communicate back. Zarek's ship continued its observation. The universe would never be the same. Humanity had done the impossible. They hadn't just survived. They had transformed the very nature of cosmic interaction. The aftermath was nothing like anyone had predicted. Zarek's ship hung in the transformed space where the quantum disruption wave had once existed, its advanced sensors struggling to comprehend the fundamental changes that had occurred. What had begun as a potential extinction event had become something entirely unprecedented in galactic history. Jake Richardson and Emma Winters stood together in the Global Coordination Center, surrounded by holographic displays that showed something beyond scientific understanding. They had not just stopped a threat. They had engaged in a conversation that transformed the very nature of cosmic interaction. "It's not just communication," Emma said, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific precision and pure wonder. "It's a complete reimagining of information exchange." The quantum disruption wave had not been destroyed. It had been transformed. What was once a destructive force now existed as a complex, adaptive information network that seemed to pulse with a form of consciousness that defied traditional understanding. Elena Rodriguez arrived, her presence bringing a sense of calm to the chaotic environment. She understood something profound that went beyond the scientific achievement. This was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a planetary statement about the nature of intelligence, of possibility. "We didn't just defend," she told the assembled team. "We demonstrated what it means to be truly intelligent." Zarek's report to the Galactic Concordance would become the most revolutionary document in the organization's extensive history. Humanity was no longer a species to be categorized or assessed. They were a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could be. Miranda Wells' cybernetic systems continued to process the unprecedented data. The transformation was multidimensional. The quantum disruption wave had not just been stopped. It had been invited to become something else entirely. Machine learning algorithms developed insights that suggested a form of communication that was neither technological nor biological, but something entirely new. The global research team had done something impossible. They had turned a force of destruction into a network of understanding. Across the planet, the impact was both subtle and profound. Research platforms that had been dedicated to defending against the threat now became centers of unprecedented scientific exploration. Universities restructured entire departments to study the new form of cosmic communication that humanity had essentially invented. Indigenous knowledge keepers from multiple continents provided critical insights. Their traditional understanding of interconnectedness had been crucial in developing the communication approach. What scientific platforms saw as complex algorithms, they recognized as a form of conversation. "We've always known," said an elder from an Aboriginal Australian community, "that everything is connected. We just needed to remember how to listen." The Galactic Concordance's communication channels were in complete disarray. Mathematical models became obsolete. Centuries of established understanding about cosmic threats were rewritten in moments. Zarik's ship continued its observation. Humanity had not just survived. They had fundamentally altered the understanding of intelligent life in the universe. Jake Richardson understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just a scientific achievement. It was a statement about the nature of intelligence itself. Destruction could be transformed. Threats could become opportunities. Communication was the most powerful technology in existence. Emma Winters saw something even more profound. The quantum disruption wave had been seeking something: understanding, connection, a form of cosmic dialogue that transcended traditional concepts of communication. "We didn't just stop a threat," she explained during a global conference. "We invited it to become something else." The transformation rippled across multiple dimensions. Research platforms across 6 continents began to develop new technologies based on the communication approach. What had been a defensive strategy became a new form of cosmic exploration. Elena Rodriguez watched the global platforms with a sense of profound understanding. This was a planetary achievement that went beyond any single discipline. It was a collective act of imagination that redefined the boundaries of possibility. Zarik prepared his report to the Galactic Concordance. How does one explain a species that doesn't just respond to threats, but fundamentally transforms them? How does one describe a civilization that turns destruction into an opportunity for understanding? The quantum disruption wave, now a complex, adaptive information network, continued to exist. But it was no longer a threat. It was a conversation. Humanity had done more than survive. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about intelligence that would reshape galactic understanding for generations to come. The universe would never be the same.